Hey, Facebook land, Dr. Wander, Integrated Health Center of Maryland. I'm the author of Reverse Your Diabetes, Change Your Life. I'm coming to you live from our office via virtual webinar. Why? We had a Reverse Diabetes dinner scheduled today, or tonight, at the Radisson Hotel, but due to the outbreak of the coronavirus, we were told we could not do the dinner there. We had over 60 people scheduled, so hopefully you're watching this. I'm going to do a version of the talk that I would have done. It's a little bit different if we don't have a live audience. You'll see me probably switch through some slides that would not be pertinent doing it virtually versus live and in color, okay? So please pay attention. Try to put down your phones. Try to concentrate. You know, there's something called digital dementia. It means every time you get a text, every time you get a Facebook notification, it takes you approximately 17 minutes to get your mind back on what you're doing. So, you know, let's get our mind off of the coronavirus and the outbreak. I'm going to be incorporating some data that I've looked at before this talk on that. So let's get to the bulk. Why do I do this? Well, when I was 13 years old or so, my grandmother, she was diabetic. You see her in the background. Her name was Sonia, and her nickname was Sunny, but her disposition wasn't necessarily so sunny. She had 5 brothers. Then she had 3 sons. Those 3 sons had 3 sons. Those 3 sons had 3 sons. I have 3 sons. I think you get the picture. But when she spoke, everybody jumped. Even my grandfather, Aaron, they're from Brooklyn. So a lot of the conversations with them had 3 and 4 and 6-letter words that make a movie R-rated, but for them, just kind of like commas. But my grandmother, she was a type 2 diabetic, and she took me out to lunch one time. The first thing she did is she laid out 13 pills. And I was like, what are all the pills for? And she said, well, baby, the first one's for my sugar, the second one's for my pressure, the third one's for my thyroid, the fourth one's for my cholesterol, the fifth one's for the side effects of the first one, the 6th one's for the side effects of the second one, and on and on. And I saw my grandmother's health trajectory go downhill really fast. Oral medication after oral medication, amputation of her right foot, dialysis, until about 2 months after that lunch, she was gone. So that's why I do this. We've been doing this for 21 years, and I'm here to tell you that to reverse type 2 diabetes is simple, but it's not easy. And so I've dedicated the last 21 years of my life to helping people like my grandmother. You could be a grandmother, grandfather, father, mother, in reversing this terrible disease. So that's why I'm here. That's why we're doing this. Hopefully you're going to learn a little bit tonight. These are 5 things you're going to learn. The main thing you're going to learn is we don't have health care in the United States. If you watch the debates, if you watch the politicians, and I'm not so political, everybody talks about healthcare, healthcare, healthcare. Guess what? We don't have healthcare. We have sick care. What's sick care? Mrs. Jones, you have this ill. I want you to take this pill, and I'll see you in 3 months. That is not healthcare. This coronavirus is not healthcare. It's sick care. So everybody's talking about the healthcare plan, this and that. It's not healthcare. That's why it doesn't make sense. And that's why, part of the reason we're in this mess, because when you have healthcare, you have a strong immune system. Listen, every year there's been a new virus, a new thing. The coronavirus, look it up, it's been out since the 1960s. Okay, this is just a different strain. But if your immune system is working proper, and if you're taking sanitary, so you mean to tell me someone needs to tell you to wash your hands? You haven't been washing your hands the whole time? Yes, this is a terrible mess we're in, and we will get through it. This too shall pass. But let's talk about today how to get healthy. And if you or someone you love is diabetic, you are more susceptible to the symptoms and severe symptoms that someone could get who's not diabetic with this coronavirus. Here's a couple slides I'm going to skip. I told you I have 3 sons. Here's my 3 sons, Lucas, Logan, August. We finally had the girl, Sophia. We told her to stay in the room. She's in the other room. You might see her run by. I don't know if she's going to listen. First girl in my family in 100 years. There's a picture of her. my wife Amanda. We live in this community. Guess what's so good about practicing today? We can practice virtually. We saw over 25 patients today, and 23 of them did not step into the office. Everything was done virtually. Nowadays, you can do things virtually. We have 35 patients we've literally never met. So when the outbreak came out, we said, what can we do to make sure that our staff and that our patients are safe? We just called everyone who was scheduled, who could be scheduled virtually, and said, listen, these next 2 weeks at least, all your visits are going to be virtual. So our main treating doctor, she worked from home today, okay? And that's the best thing about what we do. I actually did a virtual one-on-one consultation with a patient. We saw each other via Facebook Live, but they weren't in the office. So we're trying to do our part with, the distancing of what people say. Before we had Sophie, we had a girl dog, that's Connie. There's her now, she's 140 pounds. I've had the privilege of speaking all over this land at great institutions like Harvard. I spoke there 3 times. Matter of fact, the first time I spoke there, my grandfather, remember he's from Brooklyn, I said, Pop, I'm speaking at Harvard. They invited me. And I was expecting a pat on the back, and he said, I guess the standards up there are getting a little bit lower. They'll let anybody in there now. But that was a great experience. I spoke in Mercedes. I was on the NASDAQ Tower. This with Ice-T and Cocoa at Carnegie Hall. All over the place. Martha Stewart, you know who she is. Sometimes I have to pinch myself. I grew up in basically government subsidized housing in the projects of Baltimore, and here I am standing next to Martha Stewart. And Martha Stewart said, you don't know till you try. Ice-T, I'll go back a slide. Ice-T, what's the most important thing you ever learned? Number 1, he said, don't trust anybody. And number 2, from someone else, your own mistakes. You can learn from someone else's mistakes, so you don't have to go through the issues, okay? So let's get into the bulk of the talk. It might get a little heavy, because listen, type 2 diabetes is heavy. Here's the story that you guys have been telling me for about 21 years or so. You get some blood work done. Maybe you did an annual physical. Maybe it was for a life insurance exam. Maybe you weren't feeling so hot. Maybe you were getting ready to get a procedure done and they needed to do blood work before. And you get a call 2-3 days later from the office and they say, hey, Mr. Jones, we got your blood work and the doctor needs to see you. And you can tell by the end of the voice or the other end of the line, something's not good. But you make an appointment, you make a 10 o'clock appointment, you get in there, you fill out a little paperwork, it's about 10:15, you wonder why you're not being seen yet, you've read every magazine in the office, Good Housekeeping, Sports Illustrated, Us, People, you know who's getting married, you know who's getting divorced, you know who gained 20 pounds, you know who lost 20 pounds, but eventually, after about an hour and 15 minutes, you get in there. And the doctor comes in, looking down, he's got a script pad, says, hey, Mr. Jones, we got your blood work back. I'm sorry to inform you you're type 2 diabetic. Here, take this. And this is a script that begins with M, ends with N. Now say it at home. And sounds a lot like what? Metformin. And depending on the prescribing habits of your doctor, they're going to give you 500 milligrams to take once or twice a day. And then you're going to get this great advice. Mr. Jones, Mrs. Jones, what you need to do is change your diet, lose weight, exercise. Change your diet, lose weight, exercise. Mr. Jones, Mrs. Jones, what you need to do is change your diet, lose weight, and exercise. Meanwhile, the doctor typically needs to lose 35 pounds, him or herself. So you're like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do. So now, the doctor didn't tell you about the side effects, but you should have learned about the side effects because you could have read them. Here's half of the side effects of metformin, okay? The top 3, what are the top 3? GI distress, right? Diarrhea, joint pain, and blurred vision. Okay, those are the top 3, but these are half of them. But you take it, then you go back to your doctor, maybe it's 3 months later, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months. It goes up and your doctor says, hey, Mr. Jones, Mrs. Jones, your blood sugar's starting to creep up. The A1C is starting to creep up. We need to make a change. Well, what's a change mean in what I call the pill for an ill model? Because that's what you're in. means, what does it mean? An increase in dose. So now you go to the max dose of metformin. What's that? 2,000 milligrams a day. And then you start what I call the drop-down arrow of traditional care for type 2 diabetes. What does that mean? Well, you started with metformin, then you go to one of the G drugs, Glipizide, Glipizide, Actos, Farxiga, Invokana, Jardiance, Falsilicity. I call it Falsilicity, you guys call it Trulicity, until eventually doctor waves his finger at you and says, Mr. Jones, you didn't listen to that great advice I gave you. I now have to put you on insulin. And unfortunately, that is how you're counseled for the rest of your life. The rest of your life. For a disease that is simple to reverse. It's not easy, but it's simple to reverse. Some of you guys are on a drug that's called an SGLT2 inhibitor. In English, Invokana, Farxiga, Jardiance, and Vocomet. This is from the FDA, which is right down the street from my office, actually. And incidentally, this is just a pet peeve. Am I the only one that thinks the food and the drug people should not be working in the same building, and the administration, that should be separate? We're one of the only countries that has it that way, but that's just a pet peeve. But the point of this one is what? That those Farxiga, Invokana, and Jardiance, they have a black box warning. What's a black box warning? It means there's an extra warning, other than the normal side effects, that we found out since the drug was approved by the FDA. What is it? You now have a 50% increase in risk for amputation. Now, this is a good time for me to say, I'll usually say this 5 times when I'm in a live group. No one has permission to throw their bottle in whatever body of water you pass on your way home tonight. For us, it's the Potomac River, right? You don't have permission to throw your medication. That is not how it's done, okay? But there is a black box warning, and you need to be informed. Now, this is a video. I'm not going to play it because we're limited in time. But every one of these drugs, I have a video for a class action lawsuit against the drug. Okay, we're just not going to play it. So when I say we can reverse diabetes, what does that mean? Okay, so I have to define this for you. It means to reduce and eliminate your need for prescription drugs across the board. Not just your blood sugar medication. Let's talk about something called, what I call the diabetic cocktail. When I'm in a group and I said, raise your hand if you're on the diabetic cocktail, no one raises their hand, and because they don't know what it is. What's the diabetic cocktail? Blood sugar medication, blood pressure medication, and a statin. Those 3 drugs are what we call the diabetic cocktail. And then when I tell them what it is, I say, now raise your hand if you're on the diabetic cocktail. 99%. Why? Because those drugs are the standard of care for diabetes. And here's what the stats say. Approximately 30% of people taking the blood pressure medication don't have high blood pressure. And approximately 34% of the people taking a statin don't have high cholesterol. So if I ask my 11-year-old, I say, hey Logan, if someone doesn't have high blood pressure, should they be on a high blood pressure medication? He's going to be like, no. And when I ask my patients to ask their prescribing physicians why, the answer that they're told is, eventually you're going to get it, you might as well start now. I'm here to tell you that there has been no drug that has been proven to prevent something. When you get a medication, on the prescription, it says your doctor feels that the risks of this medication are outweighed by the benefits of the condition that you have. Not to prevent a condition, the condition that you have. Again, no one should be throwing their medication in the water or anywhere else, flushing them down the toilet while you're doing this. So reverse diabetes means what? Reduce and eliminate your medications across the board. Number 2, lose weight without exercise. I know it's drilled into you. You got to lose weight. You got to lose weight. You got to lose weight. Listen, 30% of you are in what's called adrenal fatigue, and if you exercised, it would be the worst thing in the world for you. So lose weight without exercise is the second part of reversing diabetes. Number 3, get your energy back. Get a good night's sleep. If you have problems falling asleep, it's typically a gallbladder problem. If you have problems staying asleep through the night, it's typically an adrenal gland problem. If you have difficulty sleeping through the night and you wake up and you're still tired, That's called wired and tired, by the way. That is typically a thyroid problem. By the way, I didn't say this earlier. We typically handle 3 conditions in the office only. Type 2 diabetes, thyroid, and autoimmune, and early stage Alzheimer's and cognitive decline reversal. That's it. Okay? So now let's talk about hormones. Men typically will get what's called male menopause. What does that mean? It means their testosterone should be higher than their estrogen. But what happens is it flips, and their estrogen is higher. And so that's called male menopause. And typically, a lot of the times that can lead to ED. Okay? I asked the patient the other day, do you have ED yet? Because almost every male diabetic patient does. And he says he didn't know what it meant. And I was like, ED, erectile dysfunction. And he said, oh, you mean everything's dead? Yes, that's what I mean. So, but that can be handled when we fix the hormones, okay? So when we talk about reverse diabetes, we talk about reducing and eliminating the medications across the board. We talk about losing weight without exercise, getting your energy back, and here's the best part, preventing the complications from diabetes. You'll see a slide later from the CDC. It tells you the complications. What are the top complications? Number 1, heart attack. Number 2, stroke. Number 3, kidney failure. Number 4, liver failure. Number 5, blindness. And number 6, amputation. And here's what the research says. The research says if your A1C is higher than 6.4, you've increased the risk for those complications 67 to 85%. Now, if you say, well, hey doc, I'm well controlled. My A1C is 6.1. My doctor says I'm well controlled. But Mr. Jones, you're on 2,000 milligrams of metformin, you're on Glipizide, you're on Actos. Of course your numbers are well controlled. But what would happen if you were not on those medications? Those numbers would go up. So the same research says this. Even if your A1C is lower than 6.4, but you're on a 1 medication or more for blood sugar, your risks for those complications are exactly the same. Now, here's another thing. You were diagnosed with diabetes on 1 marker, your A1C. It's an acronym. I usually ask the crowd, raise your hand if you know what the acronym stands for. And no one has ever answered that question. So now I say, hey, raise your hand if you've looked it up. Very few people have looked it up. Listen, it stands for Akaike Informational Criterion. It is just a statistical term that says we want to compare A with B, okay? Now let's talk about A1C. So if you didn't know, and I think you know this, some of you, A1C is an average of the last 90 days, 12 weeks, or 3 months, however you like to think about it, of how much sugar's on your red blood cell. And why is it 90 days, 12 weeks, or 3 months? Because your red blood cell is supposed to live 90 days, 12 weeks, or 3 months. But what happens if your red blood cells are not living 90 days, 12 weeks, or 3 months? Then that number you see on the paper is not accurate. So if your red blood cells are living 75 days, I'm just making up the number, then that number on your paper is higher than what you see. And if your red blood cells are living 105 days or more, then the number on the paper is lower. So if you're going to use 1 marker to determine are you diabetic, shouldn't it be accurate? The next question you should be asking yourself is there a way to measure that? Of course there is, or I wouldn't be spending time telling you about it. So I only want you to remember one thing. Type 2 diabetes is preventable, treatable, and reversible. And when we pick the right patient, we rarely see a patient fail. Hopefully, part of your instructions today were to watch about a 17-minute video of our patients telling about their experience of reversing their diabetes, of reducing and eliminating medication, including insulin, of losing weight without exercise, and preventing the devastating complications. Now, here's the slide I was talking about. I'm not sure if you can see it. It's from the CDC telling about the devastating complications. This is from the ADA, the American Diabetes Association. Basically, it's telling you that the statistics are getting worse and worse. And while diabetes has gone from the 7th leading cause of death, it's now the 3rd. You know, right before I came out, I looked and see how many people around the world have died from the coronavirus. And when I checked, at least when I checked a couple minutes ago, it was 8%, and it was just shy, I believe, of about 7,000 people. We don't know what the end result's going to be, okay? Well, listen, every year, 80,000 people die from diabetes. 80,000. You know, we all know about the devastating accident of Kobe Bryant a couple weeks ago. 45 people a year die from helicopters. 80,000 die. We should be in outrage. This should be on the media. 80,000 people, not just this year, every year, year after year, getting worse every year, spending more time and money on this. It just gets me riled up, okay? So, in 2000, oh, by the way, this is from the ADA. It says diabetes is underreported as a cause of death. My grandmother, on her death certificate, it didn't say diabetes. What did it say? Heart failure, liver failure, kidney failure. Let's talk about the money. 2012, 245 billion spent. In 2017, 327. So if it was 237 and now 327, and we've gone from the 7th leading cause of death up to the 3rd, how well is that treatment plan working? Not so well. I'm not going to play this video, but it shows a woman getting her leg amputated, the after effects. I saw that with my grandmother. Matter of fact, we had a patient a couple months ago, and they said, Doc, so-and-so, Mr. So-and-so wants to speak to you. So I go in, I say, hey, Mr. So-and-so, what's going on? He says, listen, what you guys are asking me to do is very hard. I said, but Mr. Jones, it's not hard. I said, it's not easy, but it's not hard. He's like, no, I think it's hard. He goes, if you don't think what you guys are asking me to do is hard, then what would you say is hard? I said, oh, well, that's easy, Mr. Jones. If you're like my grandmother and you had to cut off her right foot and you had to hobble around and get around, that's hard. If you had to be driven to dialysis 3 times a week, spending 4 hours a day, 3 times a week, getting someone to take you there, that's hard. If you lost your vision and you can't drive and you need to be dependent on others to do all of your activities of daily life, that's hard. What we're asking you to do is not hard. It's not easy, but it's not hard. He said, well, I guess if you put it that way, you're right. And I said, I just did put it that way. So, what I'm going to do is correct 2 cliches. Ignorance is not bliss, and what you don't know can hurt you. My job is just to give you the data. Okay? You're at the proverbial, what we call the fork in the road, right? You can keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting something different to happen. What's that the definition of? That's right, insanity. Thank you, Amanda. Or you can try something different. And we're going to explain to you a little bit what that is. Okay? So, let's talk about reversing this disease. Okay? What are you told? You got to change your diet, lose weight, and exercise. Change your diet, lose weight, and exercise. Change your diet, lose weight, and exercise. We've already gone over this stat. If your A1C is over 6.4, 67, 85% more. What you're doing is you're treating the smoke. What do I mean by treating the smoke? So you go in, you see your check engine light come on in your car, and you go to the mechanic, and you say, hey, Tony, check engine light's on, something's got to be wrong. And Tony says, well, Mrs. Jones, listen, do you hear anything? Do you smell anything? Do you see anything? And you say, no. He said, well, listen, if the light's really bothering you, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the tape and I'll put it over top so you don't see it. But then when you see something, hear something, or smell something, you come back to me. So that's kind of like what's happened to you in diabetes care. They said, hey, Mr. Jones, your blood sugar's high, your A1C's high. Here, take this so we can make your lab look pretty. And typically, as a diabetic, you really don't have any symptoms. I mean, they call diabetes the what killer? The silent killer. You really don't have any symptoms. The check engine light comes on, but you don't notice anything. It's just a symptom. But if you don't find out why that light came on, what happens? All the lights come on. And you have to realize with diabetes, it is a system organ-wide problem. Your body was trying to give you warning signs, to let you know, hey, we can't regulate the blood sugar. It is one of the most basic physiologic functions that your body needs to do. And that's why during this crazy times we're in, you can't do a basic physiologic function. Your immune system is not going to be where it needs to be, and you are more susceptible to this virus or any other virus, okay? So it's very important as a diabetic you get a hold on this. I mean, I don't know if it's a good thing or bad thing you guys don't have symptoms. I think if you had it, you might do something earlier. So what needs to happen, well, you don't need to do it. It's America, you can do whatever you want. But if you really want to reverse this, you have to treat the fire. Where there's smoke, there's what? Fire. You have to treat the fire. And that's what we do. Now, let's talk about these medications. How long are you expected to take these medications? Forever. You're in the Customer for Life program. And by the way, that's not healthcare. That's sick care. You're in the Customer for Life program. Goldman Sachs, the investment banking firm, they had an article in the Wall Street Journal a couple of years ago. It says, we are moving the majority of all the investments into the pharmaceutical industry. It's the best business ever. Why? You get one medication. How long are you expected to take it? Forever. Then you get another, then another, then another. For how long? The rest of your life. Why? Because you're in the Customer for Life program. The best business ever. They said it's harder to get out of that track, harder to get out of that than the mafia. And I'm here to tell you that our patients reduce and eliminate medications, including insulin. We don't do it. This is another time. No one while watching this video or later should just reduce and eliminate your medications without talking to your prescribing physician. But we teach you based on math. I had a mentor years ago. He said, numbers don't lie, people lie. Numbers don't lie, people lie. One thing that's good about diabetes is that you can stand in front of a person with their lab report and say, Mr. Jones, Mrs. Jones, you are not clinically diabetic. What would that be? Mr. Jones, your A1C is less than 5.7 and you are not on medications, therefore you are not a diabetic. And you have prevented the devastating effects, complications that come later. So, let's talk about the top 3 myths of diabetes. Number 1, Mr. Jones, why do you think you're diabetic? Well, you know, I'm like 30 pounds overweight, so my doctor said if I lost 30 pounds, I wouldn't be a diabetic. Wrong. Your weight has nothing to do with your diabetes. It's not the cause, so it damn sure is not the cure. We have multiple diabetic patients. If they took their arm and made a muscle, you can see every ripple and vein in their arm. So that's the first myth. Number 2, why do you think you're diabetic, Mr. Jones? Well, you know, my mom had it, my dad had it, my aunt had it, my grandmother had it. For type 2 diabetes, there has never been so far a gene discovered that says, hey, you have the gene. And by the way, even if you did have the gene, like if everyone watching this, if we all have the gene for liver cancer, we're not all going to get it. Why? Because the gene has to be turned on and it can also be turned off. What's the third myth? Well, I'm diabetic because, you know, I hit blankety blank age. There's no disease you get because you hit a certain age. 0. That doesn't even make sense. I mean, everyone knows someone 10 years older than them that can run circles around them. And everyone knows someone 10 years younger that you can run circles around them. So those are the top 3 myths. And what happens is people use those as crutches that they can't take care of themselves. And I'm here to tell you that's just downright lazy. Now, what has happened so far is you've been told you had a blood sugar issue and your doctor gave you one of the medications, right? That's the standard of care. Metformin, Glipizide, Glipizide, Actos, Farxiga, Jardiance, Falsicity, you guys call it Trulicity. Oh, what's the new one? Great marketing, by the way, by these pharmaceutical companies. Ozempic, and then insulin. But basically, it's covering up the check engine light, right? What you need to do is look underneath the iceberg, okay, what I call. If you know anything about icebergs, you only see about 10% of it above the water. You have to look underneath it. What type of things need to be looked at? Your liver is very important in regulation of blood sugar, okay? Very important. If you have something called fatty liver or non-alcoholic cirrhosis of the liver, good luck regulating your blood sugar. And by the way, there's no drug for it. You could have leaky gut. Your gut is extremely important in regulation of blood sugar. It's selectively permeable. In English, what does that mean? It needs to let certain things out and keep certain things in. Your adrenal glands, your stress glands, they sit on top of your kidneys, very important. Your thyroid, your inflammatory markers. All these different things need to be looked at. You could have heavy metals. You could have biotoxins. But what happens is when you find all the reasons of a person that is not regulating their blood sugar because of really what's causing it, and then you build them a program from the ground up based on their individual testing, guess what? It's simple to reverse this disease. It's like cheating on the test. If you had to take a test and the teacher gave you all the questions and all the answers, said, listen, come back in 3 weeks and we're going to take the test, you're going to pass. Why? Because you cheated. So we're going to cheat by finding all the different reasons individually. Listen, if I'm in a group of 50, 100 people and I say, what drug do you start with? Everybody shouts out Metformin. How can they all start with the same drug? Like, it doesn't even pass the common sense test. Okay? Now let's talk about traditional versus non-traditional care. This is a very famous slide or painting where everybody is so close to the elephant that they only see what they're looking at. Well, that's like, traditional care, right? You have the specialist in the left arm, the specialist in the right knee. I have a friend in Phoenix. He's an orthopedic surgeon. I said, what are you working on lately? He said, left knees. I said, what do you mean left knees? He said, that's what I work on. I'm like, well, don't you know how to do the right knee? He said, of course I know how to do the right knee. Well, who does the right knee? The right knee guy. So you got a left knee guy and a right knee guy? Yep. Don't they know you know how to do the other knee? Yes. Well, what? That's just how we do it. So what happens is no one is taking a step back and says, it's a spear, it's a fan, it's a wall, it's a rope. No, it's an elephant. No one is saying, let's look at your whole body, because diabetes is a system-wide organ issue, and find out what is wrong everywhere and fix all of that. That's what we do. What we do is practice functional medicine. In English, what's that mean? It means we get your body to work like it's supposed to work. Okay? Now, how am I certain that we can reverse the person's diabetes, and I am 100% certain, if we pick the right patient? Because our plan, our program, is built on 3 pillars. 1, focus. 2, priorities. 3, system. Our job is to come up with the individual customized system for you based on your test findings. That's simple for us. But we need to have the right patient who has the proper focus and priorities to follow the system. And that's very important. Just because the system's good doesn't mean it's going to work if you can't follow it, if your priorities are somewhere else. Listen, I told you we saw 23 of 25 patients virtually. 2 patients came in today to get better. Do you think their focus was good? Do you think their priorities were in the right place? There's all these warnings. Restaurants are closed. Bars are closed. Right? People aren't going to work. Stay incubated for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Guess what? They had the right focus and priorities. It's very important. And here's another problem. Everybody is always looking for the problem. What's the problem? Mr. Jones, you have this diagnosis. Mr. Jones, you have that diagnosis. What's the problem? Well, what happens when you look for problems? You find problems. Sometimes the solution is right in front of you. You just have to look for it. Now, let's talk about hormones. Hormones are very powerful. Hormones can turn Bruce Jenner into Caitlyn Jenner. Okay? Very powerful. This is something, I'm not going to get too much into it because you can't see it and you don't have it in front of you, but it is the entire androgen and estrogen metabolism pathway. Basically, all of the hormones. Just think of it like a map, right? If we live outside of DC. So if you wanted to go into DC, right, you could get out your little Waze app and you say, well, I'm going to take Wisconsin, which is this route. But the Waze app said, nope, a lot of traffic. So then you say, okay, I can take Connecticut. Nope, a lot of traffic. Okay, I can take Georgia. Nope, a lot of traffic. Okay, I could take New Hampshire. Nope, a lot of traffic. I can go around 395. I could go into, but if you knew the pathway and you knew which ways had the traffic, or for us, which hormones were too high or too low, you could fix it. There's me with Caitlin Jen. Hey, listen, speaking at Harvard, I interviewed her. Very, very awesome moment, but also uncomfortable. Why? Because in flat shoes, she's like 6'2". But she had on like these really high heels and like all the hair and the fingernails and the makeup. And it was just like, I'm used to seeing her on the Wheaties Bach in the USA tank top, okay, from the Olympics. So it was just a little surreal. Listen, some of you guys might know Suzanne Summers. She wrote many, many, many books on hormones. That's me interviewing her on hormones. Hormones, very important. Remember, we already talked about the menopause, or the male menopause. Too much estrogen and not enough testosterone, leading to ED. What's ED? Everything's dead, or erectile dysfunction. I wish, can I play this?
Yes.
Can't?
Yes, yes.
Yeah? No, it won't. Excuse me for 1 second. Some of you guys might be on a statin. I don't know if you can hear this.
It was developed for purposes of treating people with high cholesterol levels. Lipitor was approved by the FDA in 1996 and since has been directly linked to an increased risk of causing type 2 diabetes.
So the drug that's part of your standard of care causes diabetes. Again, no one's allowed to throw their statin away after watching this. But you have the statin, which is 1/3 of the diabetic cocktail, and roughly 30% or so of you are taking the drug and you don't have high cholesterol. Something's got to change, guys. Something's got to change. That's not health care. That's sick care. Now, this is the president of the American Heart Association. He did a speech in Houston a couple years ago. He had a heart attack. What was his treatment plan? He had a statin. Okay? This is a research paper. I'm just going to read the bottom part. I'm not sure if you can see it. It says the epidemic of heart failure and atherosclerosis that plagues the modern world may paradoxically be aggravated by the pervasive use of statin drugs. We propose that current statin treatment guidelines be critically reevaluated. Here's the deal, guys. This researchers and the PhDs, they publish a paper. This one's from the Expert Review of Clinical Pharmacology. How long do you think on average it takes for the practicing doctors to use the latest research? 17 years. So what happens is there's a huge gap between the research and by the time it gets to your doctor. We practice in that gap. We are the gap. We use the latest research. Research is important. It tells you what's going on. And it does change. Okay? So statins cause diabetes. What I always tell patients, hey, but were you on this statin before you were diagnosed? And it is possible. Now let's talk about the 4 types of diabetes. Everybody thinks there's 2. They think there's type 1, which is an autoimmune disease where your pancreas does not secrete enough insulin. Autoimmune, what are we in the middle of? Coronavirus, what are they talking about? Immunosuppressant, right? Compromised. So that cannot be reversed. It can be helped, but it cannot be reversed. Then there's type 2, which most people think they are. Then there's type 3. Type 3 is sugar brain, aka also known as Alzheimer's. Almost 100% of our early Alzheimer's and cognitive decline patients in the reversal program of that, almost 100% are diabetic, but they're type 3 diabetes. And then there's the 4th type, which is type 1.5. Type 1.5 means you have an autoimmune aspect to your case, and your inability to regulate your blood sugar is because of that. So autoimmune diseases are genetic. So one thing you should be thinking about is, has anyone in my family been diagnosed with one of those? I'll just rattle off some off the top of my head. Type 1 diabetes, Hashimoto's, Graves, ulcerative colitis, eczema, psoriasis, multiple sclerosis, lupus, sarcoidosis, Raynaud's syndrome. These are all autoimmune diseases. And that means someone in your family, if you have one, someone in your family has one, and they're genetic. But listen, if you didn't know you were type 1.5 diabetic, how in the heck are you going to get it fixed? So those are the 4 top myths. Why are we in this mess? You know, this is probably good timing. The United States spends more money on health care than all the other countries combined. But the problem is this, it's not health care, it's sick care. Okay? And we take, it used to be 50% of the medications, it's 75%. So we take 75% of the medications, we spend more money than all the other countries combined, we're 5% of the population, and what place do we come in by the World Health Organization on health? 46th. So I'm the new CEO of United States Healthcare. we're taking 75% medication, 5%, spending more money than all the other countries combined. We come in 46th place. What should they call me? Fired. I should be fired. Our healthcare system should be fired because it's not healthcare. That's why whoever you like, I don't care which politician you like, Trump, Sanders, Biden, my healthcare this, listen, in my opinion, they should just stand up and say, my sick care plan this, and they would win. Of course, they're probably not watching this, but somebody should send it to them. They would win. Now, let's talk about why are we in this mess? Because you don't have health care. You have sick care. You're in the pill for an ill model. Number one reason why? Big food. Listen, these companies spend $20 million on the recipe to get you addicted to the food. Matter of fact, one of the companies, they have a slogan, bet you can't eat just one. Right? When we're in a live event, I open up a bag of salt and vinegar potato chips. I say, who likes salt and vinegar potato chips? Raise your hand. I just put it down in front of them. See if they can eat one. No one's been able to do it. No one. Number two. Oh, by the way, sorry. The DARK law, D-A-R-K, it's an acronym. Deny Americans the right to know. The right to know what? That your food's genetically modified. So there were politicians and lobbyists that said, let's warn our people, like cigarettes, like alcohol. Nope. D-A-R-K. Look it up. You got to be in front of your computer after I'm done. Deny Americans the right to know. Number two, insurance companies. Usually I'm in a crowd. Raise your hand if you think your insurance company cares about you. That's right. You are a policy number. You're a policy number. There's a test called CRP, HSCRP, high sensitive C-reactive protein. It's a test that can very accurately determine your risk for the top 2 complications of diabetes. What are those? Heart attack and stroke. Some insurance companies won't pay for you to have that until what? Until you have a heart attack or stroke. Okay, so if you're dependent on this little 2x3 laminated card to keep you healthy, you're going to be a statistic. Okay, we have a patient, he sells insurance. He says, just tell the people this. If you depend on your health insurance to stay healthy, it's like depending on your life insurance to stay alive. So if you depend on your health insurance to stay healthy, you better have good life insurance. It's not health insurance, it's sick insurance. It's sick insurance. Does that mean, by the way, we only take 8 cases per month of each of the condition that we handle. So 8 type 2 diabetes reversal, 8 thyroid autoimmune, and 8 early on stage Alzheimer's reversal. So my main job is to pick the right patient. There's 3 kinds of people, right? There's patient A, hopefully you can still see me, that they're looking over there at their goal, and they're like, it's too far, there's no way I'd be able to do that. And then there's number 2, and they're very close to the goal, and they think they can do it by themselves. And what I'm here to tell you is this. Sometimes in life, you don't know what you don't know. And I'm here to tell you, if you go on Dr. Google to get all your information and you think you're just going to get confused. So those 2 people are not good fits for us. Who's a good fit? Right in the pocket, baby. Person who says, listen, I have the right focus. I have the right priorities. I just need someone to tell me, lead me to the way, and I can do it. You, my friend, are a good fit. Does that mean that your sick insurance is not going to help you with some of the stuff if we took your case? No, it doesn't mean that at all, okay? It's going to help you with certain things. However, it is not going to cover it all. So if you're the type of person who depends on the 2x3 laminated card for everything in your life, I feel bad for you because you're going to be a statistic. And I'm sorry, and it makes me upset. Why? Because that's what happened to my grandmother, and for a disease that's simple to reverse. Not easy, but simple. And number 3, big pharma. Listen, it is a $3 trillion business. We don't have time today. $1 trillion. So I don't know if you can read this. This is at least one of your insurance companies' plan out there, okay? I'm just going to read it. A treatment plan that seeks to prevent diseases, promote health, and prolong and enhance the quality of life or maintain or prevent deterioration. Chronic condition is deemed not medically necessary. So Mrs. Jones, you just had the number 1 complication. You needed quadruple bypass surgery. We got you. We got the surgeon's fee. We got the hospital fee. We got the medication. We got your hospital stay. We got the rehab. Oh, but you wanted that test to see if you... No. That's not medically necessary. So listen, there's medically necessary is one thing, and that guess who decides that? Your insurance company. And then there's something called clinically relevant. That means I'm telling you, you need this test for me to help you hit your goals. And your goals were to reduce and eliminate your medication. Why did you want to do that? Well, I have 4 grandchildren under 25. Okay, you need help. You don't know. Listen, I think it's AT&T. It says, just okay is not okay. Well, listen, if you're on trial for murder and you have an attorney, and I say, how's your attorney? You're like, he's okay. Guess what? Just okay is not okay. And what else is just not okay? Hey, your healthcare team, you can't just have okay people. You can't, just okay is not okay. Now, this is another insurance thing. I'm not going to read that, okay? I'll tell you another quick story about insurance. My wife, she hit her head on the door a couple winters ago. It was bleeding. We got her stitched up. She was acting a little weird. I said, listen, let's go get you a CT scan. I want to make sure your brain's not bleeding. So we go. It's right up the street. We go. The room's empty, like every place else right now, the coronavirus, right? Every place is empty. And so 5 minutes goes by, 10 minutes, 20, 30 minutes goes by. I'm like, hey, are there like 20 people back there getting MRIs and CT scans? And they're like, no, you guys are the only ones here. And I'm like, what are we waiting for? Like, do you know what a CT scan measures? And he's like, of course, I work in a diagnostic center. And I'm like, all right, well, what can we do to speed this up? She said, well, what we're waiting for is your insurance company to pre-authorize the CT scan. I was like, okay, I don't want to wait anymore. Let me just pay for it. How much is it going to be? And she said, you just want to pay for it? I'm like, yes, I want to pay for it. Well, how much? She says, I don't know. I'm the newest person that's worked here. I've only worked here 8.5 years. No one's ever paid for a test. I was like, okay, find someone who does. So the manager comes out and said, hey, how much? I want to pay. She says, you want to pay? I was like, yeah, I want to pay. So, okay, how much? 200. Is you going to pay right now? Yep, $200. Great. Here's my card. Charge it. We go back. We get the test. She's fine. On the way out, we're leaving. I'm like, hey, did you guys ever get that thing pre-authorized? They said, no, you paid. I was like, I know, I just curious, how much would you charge my insurance company? Oh, $3,795. And I'm like, and you let me have it for $200? Yeah, we got the money now. That's sick insurance. That's not health insurance. You can pick whatever you want, sick insurance or health insurance. It's up to you. I'm going to go over this slide. Honestly, I don't know how well you see it, but this is Diabetes 101, okay? Your pancreas secretes insulin when you eat. It secretes insulin when you eat. It's supposed to do that. It connects to your food, your glucose, and this molecule must get into your cell to create something called ATP. It stands for adenosine triphosphate. Don't worry about that. Just think energy. So I'm not diabetic. So I eat, my pancreas secretes insulin, it attaches to my food, it gets into my cell, create energy, and I don't think about it. But when you're diabetic, here's what happens. The molecule can't get into the cell because the receptor sites are blocked. The receptors are resistant to the insulin and it can't get in, okay? So what happens is it's like going into any major city Monday through Friday, there's a lot of cars. So it creates a backup. So if the cars can't get where they need to go or this molecule can't get into the cell, backs up. So if it backs up and you take your blood sugar, it's going to be higher, right? Now, so then you get the first of the diabetic cocktail. Now, your artery, think of your artery like a tunnel and liquid has to go through it. The liquid is the blood. So if there's too much gunk in the tunnel or the artery, is it going to take more pressure or less pressure to push it through? More, high blood pressure. And then this molecule is going to turn into two things if it stays there too long: fat and cholesterol. Statin. So that's your diabetic cocktail. Now, here's another very important part. Listen close, especially if you're on insulin or glyburide, glimepiride, or glipizide. So if you're producing plenty of insulin, and we can measure that, and you can't get that into the cell where it needs to go, then if I give you extra insulin, or I give you a drug that makes you produce more insulin, did I just make that problem better or worse? Worse. I'm making you get more insulin that can't get where it needs to get. You're making the receptor sites more insulin resistant. It's like basically giving alcohol to an alcoholic. Now, listen, no one's allowed to stop their insulin and medication now. It's not how it's done. Our job is to find which of about the 135 different reasons you could become insulin resistant and build you a program from the ground up. And the best thing about what we do is you can see it with numbers. When you take your blood sugar, you see the trend. You know what's going on. So you can listen. You can treat the smoke or you can treat the fire. It's up to you. It's your body. You can do whatever you want. All the research points it out. This is from the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism. It says the safety of insulin in the treatment has recently undergone scrutiny. Exogenous insulin therapy was associated with increased risk of diabetes-related complications, cancer, and all-cause mortality. The researchers did the research papers, 17 years for the doctors to use it. So you can treat the smoke or treat the fire, it's up to you. I don't know how well you can see these, but these are a lot of before and after lab reports. Here's a patient. Lab was done September 25th, 7/4/237. That was August. September 23rd, 28 days later, 6/4/122. Coming down on medications at their prescribing doctor's recommendation. Listen, you guys don't know how to communicate with your prescribing doctors. We're going to teach you how to communicate with them. We don't take their place. We need them on the team. We join your healthcare team. Every relationship with every doctor you have is going to be better. Why? Because you're going to know the nomenclature to easily communicate with them. Same patient, 6 weeks later, 6.0, 103, coming down in medication. Here's another patient. Same patient, sorry. Triglycerides, 291 on August 25th. Same patient, September 23rd, 28 days later, normal. Numbers don't lie. People lie, but numbers don't lie. Here's another patient. A1C, 10.9, 274. It's not good, right? 6 weeks later, 8.5. 8.5 is still high, but not when you started in the 10s, almost 11. Here's another patient. I remember this patient on 125 units of insulin a day, and the A1C still 12.0 on April 13th. It's my mom's birthday. 6 weeks later, 9.0, May 26th. 6 weeks later, 7.4. Listen, type 2 diabetes is treatable, preventable, and reversible. And when we pick the right patient, this is what you see. The question you need to start asking yourself is, who's the right patient? Am I a good fit? We'll see. We'll go over that. Here's another patient. We talked about fatty liver earlier. What's fatty liver? I don't think I said it. Is when your triglycerides and or cholesterol are high and one of the liver enzymes are high. Well, listen, triglycerides functionally should be less than 100. This patient is 913. This is a walking heart attack, okay? Liver, 6 weeks later, 581. 6 weeks later, 288. From 981 to 288 in 12 weeks. Lowering the medication. Still not where they need to be, but pretty good, right? This is the same patient. The liver enzymes are high. A1C is 10.2. The A1C is just a symptom of the fatty liver and other things that were wrong with this patient. 6 weeks later, 8.4. 7.2, 6 weeks later. Here's another. Why diabetic, Mr. Jones? Well, I'm getting old. This patient's 31. His wife's an endocrinologist. They were my first appointment the next day from one of our dinners. She comes in and she says, you did a very good job of explaining these, medical terminology to lay people. I was like, oh, lay people? I was like, what type of physician are you? What's your specialty? She said, I'm an endocrinologist. I'm like, what are you doing here? She said, well, my husband, his A1C is 12.4, and his doctor wants to put him on insulin. And I don't want him to go on insulin. And I'm like, I'm going to ask you, I was like, can I be open and frank with you? She said, of course. I was like, I'm going to ask you a question, and I just don't think you're going to have a good reaction to the question, but I think it's fair and safe for me to ask you. She said, go ahead, I'm an open book. I said, you don't want your husband to have insulin, but do you prescribe your patients insulin? She said, yes. She looked down. So basically, they had 4 boys, and she was pregnant, and a girl was coming. She's like, listen, he needs to be around. Where he's 31 years old, 12.4, and I know the devastating effects. This was on Cinco de Mayo, 5/5. I didn't have a green tie. It's St. Patrick's Day today. I don't think anybody even knows it, but I didn't have a green tie. 7/21, 6.2, 50%. 6 weeks later. It's a 90-day, 12-week, or 3-month average. 6 weeks later, 5.7. I only want you to remember one thing. Type 2 diabetes is preventable, treatable, and reversible. And when we pick the right patient, we rarely see a patient fail. So what do you need to be thinking of now? Right? I told you our 3 pillars for our program are what? Focus, priorities, system. Well, we have the system part down. But you need to have the right priorities. You need the right why. Your goal is not to reverse your diabetes. That is not your goal. Your goal is to live to see your grandchildren grow up. That's the goal, or that's the motivation. That's the priority. So you need to start thinking about that. Here's a video I like to play. This is kind of what we're looking for. Oh. Well, I can't play it. We're live, so we got to fix that. What type of tests are we going to do? Very extensive. What we're going to do is pick you up, turn you upside down till all the change falls out, so we know everything that's going on. We're going to do very thorough blood work. We're going to see is your pancreas secreting insulin. We're going to get an accurate A1C. We're going to test all the liver enzymes, full thyroid panel. We're going to check your gut. We're going to check your hormones. We might check heavy metals. We're going to do a food intolerance test. Some of you guys are killing you. I'm going to go gluten-free. I'm going to go. You don't even know what you can eat. By the way, there's no diabetic diet. There's no such thing. There's no diet. Everyone's not going to be able to eat the same things. Okay? So we got to test you. Will you have to change what you eat? Probably. I mean, I don't know what you eat. I can tell you this. You won't have to starve yourself. You literally can eat as much as you want. Much as you want. And there's no don't eat past 7:30. No, you can eat all day long if you want. We just need to find out why you can't regulate your blood sugar and what you need to eat, and you can eat. Will you have to take nutraceuticals? We call them nutraceuticals. You guys call them vitamins, supplements, herbs, etc. Yes, you will. But sometimes people get afraid, right? Because sometimes you're taking not good supplements. Why? Because they're not regulated by anyone. So anyone who's watching this, you and I could start a supplement company today, and we could put whatever we want on the label and put something different in the supplement. It's 100% legal. And what happens is you just wind up with anything not absorbed, and you just have expensive urine. So when you go to the bathroom, you should just start, throwing 10s and 20s into the toilet while you're doing that, because that's what you're doing. But if you pick the right supplement for the right reason to get the proper result based on a test result, that you know exactly what's in the supplement because you have a third-party company test them, it's magic. Now, part of our program is we don't give you the fish, we teach you to fish. We don't give you fish, we teach you to fish. What does that mean? It means we take you on a shopping trip that is mandatory and show you how to read the labels and where all the substitution foods are that you think you might not have. Now, do you have to shop at Whole Paycheck? No, you don't have to shop at Whole Paycheck. Does Whole Paycheck have some good stuff? Of course they do. But so does whatever grocery store you live near. Trader Joe's, Giant, Safeway, Wegmans, wherever it is. But the point is this. You don't know what you don't know. So we're going to teach you what to look for when you shop. So, listen, I only want you to remember one thing. My time is almost up. Type 2 diabetes is treatable, reversible, and preventable. And when we pick the right patient, we rarely see a patient fail. And remember, just okay is not okay. So if any of you interested are wanting to see if you are a good fit for our program, remember, We only take 8 cases a month for diabetes, and we're getting almost 650 applicants every month. So if you want to see if you're a good fit, you can sign up for a consultation. Get in touch with us. We'll send you a link. It's $89. We will sit down either in the office or virtually. Okay, we can do these things virtually to find out if you're a good fit. We had a patient come from Greece the other day. Okay, and we will sit down and we will first determine A, clinically, are you a good fit? And then if you are, which most people are, we'll go through a qualification process where basically I'm kind of going to grill you a little bit, and because I need to make sure you're a good fit. I need to make sure you're in the pocket. You're not over here where you think it's too hard, and you're not over here where you think you can do it. Because if you could do it, why are you watching? Why did someone send you this video? So if you're interested, we would love to see if we can take your case. Believe it or not, we had one of our busiest days today. It's crazy. When people are the right people for the fit and their priority, they make it happen. So I hope to see or hear some of you. I think this thing gets recorded. I'm not positive. So if you have questions, you can ask them. If you're interested in a link, we can send you a link to set up a consultation, and my staff will contact you. So I hope you learned something. Have a great night, and stay safe and smart.